The anticipation for the release of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, way back in 1999 was absolutely immense. There hadn't been a new Star Wars film in over 15 years, and cinema goers were eager to see how a modern Star Wars film would look with all new, updated, current special effects. And needless to say, toy company Hasbro was ready to launch a full-scale invasion of the toy aisles. But of course, Episode 1 would be a very different beast to the previous original trilogy films. And when Hasbro were looking for a new playset to replace the Millennium Falcon, they struggled to find one. Instead, they zeroed in on the Royal Naboo Starship. Of course, this very elegant, streamlined, beautifully designed ship is a world away from the clunky, beaten up Millennium Falcon. But Hasbro rose to the challenge to create a giant playset out of this vehicle. In fact, it's probably the biggest Star Wars playset up until that point. And as a child, I was very fortunate to get one as a gift one year. And so I thought it'd be fun for Flashback Friday to take a look back at this fantastic giant Star Wars playset. So looking at the packaging, the first thing to say is that this thing is big. This is a really long box. The artwork on the front of the packaging is fairly simple. It has an image of the ship, and they've taken a little bit of creative license here to create some of the blast effects that are going on around it, which makes it look very exciting. And to be fair, it is trying to demo some of the action features that come with this set. So I think this is fair. I think it's very visually striking. It does of course have the standard Star Wars Episode 1 branding with Darth Maul's face there in the top left hand corner. And all in all, this is still pretty presentable, even by today's standards. You could put this, if you had enough room, on your shelf and it would be a showstopper. Meanwhile, the reverse of the packaging, I have to say, is probably even more exciting. And that's because we see the playset in all its glory with everything open and functioning, and we can see all those wonderful toys on display there, all the various action figures that hopefully you've been picking up in advance of this playset, and you can see all the highlighted features in this set. And I just think this looks absolutely fantastic and super exciting even now. Okay, and once we take the ship out of its packaging, it comes basically in two parts, more or less. Now, there's a couple of things to attach, like the legs and the front of the nose cone there, and then the rest of the body is all one piece. And when you put it all together, my word, this is huge. This is over 3 feet long. This is a gigantic playset. And if we add Obi-Wan Kenobi here, of course, at the 3 3/4 scale height, you can see that it's also pretty high off the ground as well, thanks to those landing legs. And what's really nice about this vehicle is that it works in its own right as a spaceship. If you want it as a big giant model in your collection, it does the job. It's not immediately apparent this is a playset that folds out, and it looks super authentic to what we see on screen, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, you might be wondering why mine is missing one of the end fins there. That's simply because this is an extra piece, a rubber piece that screws into the end of the ship. There's 2 of them. Sadly, I seem to have misplaced one of mine. This isn't a deliberate design, it's just my vehicle. Also, you may notice there's a few scratches and scrapes on mine because it's been well played with, and of course that metallic veneer is very easily to scratch. But all in all, they've done a very beautiful job with this. I think rendering it into plastic form has worked an absolute treat. It looks exactly like it does on screen. They've managed to capture that sleek aesthetic, and it looks fantastic. The paint job is very, very nicely done. As I said, there's a slight metallic quality to it, and overall it just looks really, really rich and sumptuous. And now the fun part. You can lift the lid on the middle segment to reveal the throne, but it also has this very neatly tucked away ramp that you can pull out and extend so the figures can climb up and down into the ship. The throne room itself is a pretty tight space. It's quite compact, but there is some nice decoration through the use of stickers to make this a lot more colourful and a lot more visually interesting. And there is also Queen Amidala's chair, which is a fairly hollow piece, but it is nicely decorated. I don't know if it's entirely practical for sitting figures on, but it looks the part. But the main part of the play takes part in the rear of the ship. The top of the ship lifts up onto its side, and inside we can see the upper flight deck. But that's not all, because this upper flight deck also extends out to reveal the lower level. So this is an absolutely huge space, and is now becoming quite a big playset. Now, the upper flight deck, unlike the throne room, has 4 seats for action figures and still manages to feel quite spacious and roomy. Also, these seats are much better accommodating the action figures themselves, and they are articulated to support the various lengths and size of the characters' legs to be able to tilt the figures back. And all in all, this looks pretty awesome, I have to say. I think the decoration, the stickers, the paint apps all look fantastic. Again, look completely authentic to what we see on screen, but just looks like a lot of fun as well. The playset also includes a free toy, and that is this R5 unit, which is basically a red R2-D2, which is quite cool, very nice. He also comes with his little alcove, so he can stand in there when he's not at work, and then of course you can free him and use him around the ship, which is pretty cool. It's a nice little extra feature that I think works very, very well. And there's no great surprises in terms of the figure itself. Anyone who's owned one of the R2-D2 figures knows exactly what they're getting here. It's the same figure, but with a red paint job instead. But for those who aren't familiar, it does actually have some articulation, so he can spin his head 360 degrees. His arms rotate back there on those swivels, which is great. And then finally, he's also got hinges at the ankles, for lack of a better word. And he has that hidden third leg that can be pulled out, and that also is articulated at the ankle as well, so he can be fully supported when moving. He also has one last trick. If you shine a light through the top of his dome there, you will see that little red button next to his eye sort of glows up red, which is pretty cool. Now, one of my favourite features of this playset is the working elevator. I love this, I think it's absolutely fantastic. It fits perfectly for any of the droids, the R2 units. You can simply put them in here and you can either lower them down to the ground simply by pushing the elevator down, or you can lift them up through the top, through the ceiling of the ship, so they can fix any problems going on out there as well during battle, which is absolutely fantastic. I think this is a wonderful idea and it's executed perfectly. It's so much fun. Now, the ship also has lights and sounds, and when you press various buttons, you get different sound effects. Now, you may notice on the roof of the ship there are these 2 separate panels here, which you can remove, or they can be blown off, because one of the features of the ship is the ability to have a space battle with one of the droid fighters, which is absolutely fantastic. So we get some real life battle damage here. We get lights that flash up. We can see some of the stickers underneath to reveal some of the battle damage engines, which is fantastic. And of course, we can have our R2 unit go out there to try and fix it. And that's where one of the really fun elements comes into play. And here you can see the droid fighter, which is connected onto a hilt, a gun handle, which has a trigger. Now, when you press this trigger, it actually fires an infrared beam that hits the ship and triggers the sound effects of blaster fire and explosions happening, but also triggers a nodule to pop up and pop those panels off the top of the ship. Now, sadly, I am missing my hilt, so I can't demo this to you, but trust me, it was tons of fun as a kid. But to give you a taster, I can show you another feature where once the R5 unit goes out there to fix the problems, he is promptly dispatched by laser fire. At the top of the ship there is another pop-up nodule, and if you press the trigger underneath the ship, this will force the poor R5 unit to be blasted into space. Meanwhile, inside the ship, we can see the lights flashing on and off as the laser battle is happening, and you'll notice there is this big blue unit that is actually triggered. There is a little cap in there that pops that up as well, and you can then spin it around and replace it as a battle damage version of the same thing. I think this is really fantastic. It's really wonderful, very, very fun, and it's very entertaining. But we're not done yet, because there is one final feature I want to show you, and that is hidden in the nose of the ship. You can dismantle the nose and you can carefully slide off the roof of this nodule to reveal inside another spaceship. This is a mini Naboo starfighter, and inside it is actually nicely decorated with stickers, which is quite a nice touch considering they didn't have to do this, so it looks quite pleasant and quite nicely done. And of course you can remove this starfighter and you can put your figures in it as well. Now, this is definitely off script, we don't see this on screen, but I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that the Royal Starship has its own mini fighter on there. It makes perfect sense, and it would of course be in those bright, brilliant yellow and silver colours as well. So I actually like this. I think this is fine. This is a toy company using creative license in a really creative way, and I think it is in keeping with the spirit of the universe, so I've no problem with this whatsoever. And I love the fact that we can take the R5 unit, we can pop him in there just like with the fully fledged Naboo starfighter, and then there is one cockpit seat for one of our figures to slide in there as well. Now, I should point out that this starfighter has defences. It does fire a missile. There is a missile port right at the very centre of the vehicle there, and of course there is that button to release it and fire it spring loaded at any enemies that come in your way. Now, unfortunately I have lost mine, so again, I'm sorry I can't demo that to you. But all in all, I think it's a very nice touch that we get 2 additional ships with this playset to really expand the options for play. I love the interactive element with the infrared light as well. I think that's a really nice touch. And all in all, I have to say this is an absolutely wonderful playset. It's so diverse, it has so many options for play that it just feels like the possibilities are endless, really. It's a fantastic vehicle to put your action figure collection on display in as well. It still looks good after all these years, and I love all this extra functionality. I just think the lights and sounds are wonderful. Having the interactive quality with the ships is fantastic, and just the sheer scale and size and ambition that's in this playset is just magnificent. So regardless of what you think of the film or how you feel about this toy line, I think you'd be hard pressed to argue that this isn't a really innovative and very, very cool playset. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.